For centuries, the Roman Republic functioned through a complex system of shared power and annual elections. But after decades of civil war, that system collapsed, and every lever of political and military control was handed to a single man. Augustus became the first emperor. He ended the internal slaughter and began a 44-year reign that professionalized the army and stabilized the borders, a period often called the Pax Romana. He turned Rome from a city of brick into a city of marble, building massive new temples and establishing the Praetorian Guard as his own elite personal bodyguard. Augustus built zero process for after he died. He consolidated every office into his own person, leaving no legal manual for succession. Leadership would not be determined by a vote, but by the random chance of birth. The survival of the state was now tied to a genetic lottery. The only qualification for the absolute command of millions was simply being the next person in the emperor's family tree. In a system where one person holds all the power, the entire civilization becomes an extension of that person's character. If the bloodline produced a capable leader, the empire thrived, but if it produced someone unfit, there was no constitutional way to remove them. It didn't take long for the limitations of that bloodline to show. In the decades following Augustus, the stability of the throne began to erode, as the absolute power of the office met the volatility of the people inheriting it. Caligula inherited the empire and became so notoriously unstable that the ancient sources are filled with stories of his cruelty, including the claim that he intended to make his favorite horse a high-ranking government official. After just 4 years, his own personal bodyguards decided that assassination was the only way to end his reign. Then came Nero. In AD 64, a fire broke out that burned for 6 days, destroying vast sections of the city and leaving thousands homeless. Nero didn't use the ruins to rebuild housing for the public. Instead, he seized 300 acres of the scorched earth to construct a massive private palace for himself, complete with a gilded lake and a 100-foot bronze statue of his own likeness. This is the inherent risk of hereditary rule. When power is a birthright, the state is forced to endure the whims of the individual, whether they are building infrastructure or building monuments to their own vanity. By the 2nd century AD, Rome found a temporary solution to this problem. For nearly 100 years, the empire experienced a stretch of prosperity under 5 consecutive leaders who would become known as the 5 Good Emperors. The key to this era was a departure from traditional inheritance. These emperors did not hand power to their biological sons. Instead, each sitting emperor selected an adult who had already proven their ability as an administrator or general and legally adopted them specifically to take over the government. This merit-based system produced Trajan, a soldier emperor who pushed the Roman borders to their absolute greatest extent, from Germany to the Persian Gulf. Trajan's successor, Hadrian, shifted the focus inward. He realized the empire was too large to defend, so he fortified the borders and spent his reign traveling to every province to ensure the local governments actually worked. He also rebuilt the Pantheon, a temple featuring a concrete dome so well engineered that it remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world today. By replacing the genetic lottery with a deliberate selection process, Rome achieved a level of competence at the top of the state that allowed trade to flow, cities to grow, and the borders to remain secure for over 80 years. The era of meritocracy ended with Marcus Aurelius. He was a philosopher king who spent his nights writing stoic reflections on duty, and his days defending the Danube frontier against Germanic tribes. His journal, the Meditations, is still read today for its insights on self-discipline. But despite his personal wisdom, he failed to maintain the one political rule that had made the previous century successful. Marcus Aurelius abandoned the adoption system and named his biological son Commodus as his heir. Commodus was vain and erratic. He spent more time performing as a gladiator in the arena than he did governing, and he eventually attempted to rename the city of Rome after himself. His reign was defined by paranoia and political purges, ending in 192 AD, when he was strangled in his bath by his own inner circle. The death of Commodus triggered a period of instability that the empire never truly recovered from. In the 50 years that followed, Rome would burn through more than 20 different emperors, almost all of whom were military commanders who seized power by force, only to be killed by their own troops. The history of Rome shows that an autocracy is only as strong as its succession plan. Without institutions to filter for merit and constrain ego, a civilization is always vulnerable to the character of the next person who happens to inherit the throne.